One. Hello. Today we're going to be talking about the evolution of crisis leadership and the way leadership theory and the way leaders respond to crisis has changed in response to developing technology and new threats. So, first on our agenda, we're going to talk about crisis leadership in response to tariffs and global politics. As I'm sure if you follow the news, you can see that that's kind of a big deal going on right now. A little bit in the past, but not too far back in the past was the COVID-19 pandemic, and we're going to talk about how leaders responded to the pandemic, the challenges they faced, and the new strategies they used to help lead their people. We're going to talk about the changes in crisis response from the past to the present, evolution in crises, how the different crises we face today have changed, and the way people react to crises, and how leaders can help their followers based on the reactions our followers have. And finally, how leaders have used AI to their advantage, as well as the threat of AI. How do they respond to the threat of AI? AI is a big challenge, new technology facing leaders. Next slide, please. So, to introduce our team, we got myself, Xavier Cassar. Everybody else introduce themselves.
My name is Ahmad.
Firas.
Said Mahmoud.
And I'm Hamza.
All right, cool. All right, so first we're going to talk about the different crises faced by leaders. We have crises that have always existed and some new ones, some new threats being faced in the world today. So pandemics have always been a thing faced by leaders, different challenges like COVID more recently, but plagues, the Spanish flu in the past. Different leaders, this is a huge crisis that, world leaders face, but also small-time business leaders as well. They impact our businesses and our families, and it's important for leaders to be able to adapt to these challenges. A couple other ones like natural disasters and political crises. These have always happened, but there's new theories, new ways that leaders have evolved to help meet the needs of the people during these crises. And the new crises that we're going to be talking more specifically about today, AI become a huge thing in the world today. You can call it a crisis in terms of the way it's being used in school for students to cheat on their assignments. We have deans as leaders trying to combat this, and that's a huge crisis for them. Cybersecurity threats, that was never a thing a couple decades ago. Now it's a huge problem all companies face, all organizations face. Social media scandals, again, huge crises that can face and completely harm a company if they come out. So leaders have these new challenges because of new technology, new changes that they have to face, and they have to come up with new strategies to combat them. So, how do most people react in crisis? They react with anxiety and fear. They feel anxious about what comes next for them, for their families. They fear the worst. This is completely normal. You would expect most people when they're faced with, natural disaster or political and economic uncertainty that they're going to be scared. They're going to fear what comes next. They're going to be worried. They're also going to try and take on more than they can handle. A lot of people, when bad things happen, especially in the workplace scenario, they're going to try and do more to help combat the crises, but this can be detrimental. And as leaders, we have a responsibility to help them, not try and do too much, because trying to do too much can be detrimental to their overall health of the person as well as the quality of their output. We don't want either of those things. And finally, my final point is people can avoid the issues that they're facing in these scenarios, and it's important for leaders to help people not avoid the issues that they're facing and tackle them head on. Next slide, please. So, how can leaders help these people with their reactions? They can communicate with their team members, being open with the communication about the problems they face, solutions to these problems. If my example earlier about the dean with AI, students using AI, they need to be constantly communicating with the teachers about ways to look for cheating and stuff, and also calm them down, say it's not your responsibility that or it's not your fault that the students are cheating, because teachers take on a lot of pressure. Comfort, reassurance as well. The leader needs to be there for the people that they're leading and to help them get through these issues. And finally, collaboration. Modern leaders, they've become more open than past leaders about working with their team, talking with their team about how to solve problems. And this ultimately helps the team members become more comfortable dealing with the crises at hand. So I'm going to pass it off to our next team member.
Yeah, so that will be me. I'll be talking about the crisis leadership in response to terrorists and global politics. So, global crises, especially those driven by political and economic factors, shape modern crisis leadership. Unlike past decades, today's major crises often emerge from policy decision, terrors, and geopolitical tension, rather than a natural disaster alone. This shift means a leader must now manage diplomacy, economic stability, and communication all at the same time. Next slide, please. So yeah, the impact to response to tariffs. The impact of tariffs and leadership response. Tariffs have become one of the clearest example of political decision creating economic crisis. They create uncertainty, disturb supply chains, and spark political backlash. When tariffs escalate, leaders must respond quickly and strategically. The key leadership actions include communicating clearly with stakeholders, evaluating trade routes and supply networks, and also coordinating with government and international partners. An example for that would be the US-China tariff tension from 2018 to 2020. During this period, CEOs used crisis communication strategies to and scenario planning to protect their operation and reassure investors. Companies like Apple and GM even publicly discussed tariff strategy to help stabilize the market. This shows shift toward proactive planning instead of reactive decision. Data-driven leadership and building trust. Modern crisis leadership is also becoming more data-driven, and leaders now rely on analytics and scenario modeling to predict the economic impact of tariffs or policy shifts. At the same time, trust has become a critical leadership. Trust has become a critical leadership skill. Transparent communication also helps maintain public confidence when the economy is uncertain. This combination of data-driven decision making and transparency is now essential for managing political and economic crises. Next slide. Political instability and leadership. Political instability, such as war, sanction, and global election, also force leaders to act with strong strategic diplomacy and ethics. They must balance national interests and organizational goals without losing sight of core values. For example, European Energy Company had to adjust their strategies during the Russia and Ukraine conflict. They had considered both ethical concern and supply demands at the same time. This demonstrates how geopolitical awareness and cultural collaboration have become essential leadership traits. Next slide. Uh, how has leadership evolved? When comparing older models to today's, we can see a major transformation. For example, the old model is nationally focused and top-down decision making, whereas the modern model is collaborative and international coordinated, technology-driven, and strong emphasis on transparency, trust, and adaptability. The key insight is that today's leader must integrate economics, communication, and ethics in real time. Crises now move too quickly and are too interconnected for slow or isolated decision making. Global crises driven by change, political instability, and geopolitical tension requires leaders who are global. Uh, requires leaders who are global, aware, technology capable, transparent, and adaptable. Whether responding to terror shocks or negative international political conflict, effective crisis leadership today is proactive, data informed, and grounded in communication and trust.
All right, so I'll be talking about leadership response to COVID. So the first major shift we saw was from control to collaboration. Traditionally, crisis leadership relied heavily on centralized authority and tight control. Leaders were expected to command, direct, and take charge, but during COVID, The scale and complexity of the crisis made it impossible for any single leader, government, or organization to manage it alone. Leaders had to rely on multiple partners, scientists, public health agencies, and international organizations, and as well as private companies, universities, and even community groups. For example, vaccine development involves collaboration between government, pharma companies, and as well as research institutions and across several countries. Public health responses required coordination between federal, provincial, and municipal governments. Even tech companies played a major role by building tools for remote learning, public communication, and case tracking. This shift reflected our course concept of collaborative leadership, which emphasizes shared expertise, distributed decision making. COVID made that clear that collaboration is no longer optional and it is essential in modern crisis leadership. Our second major shift was from top down to transparent communication. In past crises, communication tended to be slower and more heavily filtered. Leaders often released information strategically and sometimes only after decisions were already made. But during COVID, it created a situation where people around the world demanded immediate, accurate, and honest information. Uncertainty and fear were extremely high. Any lack of clarity from leaders led to confusion, panic, and mistrust as well. In response, leaders began communicating far more frequently and openly than in previous crises. Daily briefings became standard. Scientists and medical officers were placed in front of the public, as well as governments published real-time case numbers, hospital capacity data, and vaccination progresses on dashboards. Leaders were expected to explain not only what decisions were being made, but also why they were being made. This aligns with our course concepts on ethical communication, trust building. Transparency became one of the most powerful tools for influencing public behavior. Leaders learned that effective crisis communication isn't just about giving orders, it's about building trust through honesty, clarity, and empathy. Next, I'll be talking about the third major shift, which is from stability to adaptive leadership. Before COVID, many crises responsible plans assumed a relatively short timeline. Something happened, leaders responded to it, and the situation stabilized, and operations returned back to normal. But during COVID, it didn't follow that pattern. It evolved constantly, new variants, new research, changing restrictions, and shifting public attitudes. Leaders had to make decisions quickly, often with incomplete or conflicting information. They had to revise policies repeatedly as new data came up. For example, reopening plans changed multiple times, mask and vaccine guidelines were updated and as evidence evolved, and supply chain issues forced rapid adjustments. This is exactly what our course talks about as adaptive leadership, the ability to learn continuously, stay flexible, and pivot strategy when circumstances change. COVID showed that rigid plans and fixed leadership styles cannot survive a prolonged, unpredictable crisis. Another example, another major area of change was the role of technology. Technology became central to crisis leadership in a way we had never seen before. Leaders used digital dashboards to track cases and hospital capacity, modeling tools to predict spreads, and online platforms to coordinate remote teams. Entire workforces shifted to virtual environments, requiring leaders to rethink how they motivate people, maintaining culture and support mental health without being physically present. At the same time, digital misinformation became a serious leadership challenge. Leaders had to address false narratives spreading online and develop strategies to maintain public trust in scientific and medical information. This highlighted the need for modern crisis leaders to not only understand data, but to communicate it effectively in digital spaces. Overall, COVID-19 transformed crisis leadership by accelerating these key shifts by more collaboration, more transparency, and more adaptability.
I'm gonna talk about how leaders used to deal with crisis before versus now, and why these changes have happened. In the past, crisis leadership looked completely different from what we see today. Most decisions were made by one person or a small group at the top, and everything flowed downward. Leaders relied heavily on their own experience and authority because they didn't have much data or real time information to guide them. And also communication was slow, and everything were shared through memos, newspaper, radio, or announcements. Most responses were reactive. Leader waited for something to happen, then tried to manage the damage and rebuild afterward. Collaboration was also limited as well. Teams weren't involved the way they are now, and leaders often work in alone, lonely during a crisis. Next slide, please. And But nowadays, crisis leadership is much more collaborative and connected. Instead of one person making all the decisions, leaders now work with their teams and also specialists to make faster and more informed choices. We also have access to real-time information, which is completely changes how leaders respond. And also, communication is different from the past because real-time communication is faster, and we have access to real-time data. And also, uh, modern leadership focuses on planning ahead, predicting problems, and adjusting quickly. Also, leaders now put more emphasis on empathy, transparency, and communication. They try to keep people informed, calm, and engaged during difficult situations. And next slide, please. Uh, when we compare past and present crisis leadership, the difference are really clear. Before decisions were top down, but now they are collaborative and data driven. Communication used to be a slow and one directional, but today's world communication is different and is real time and multi channel. And also, strategies used to be reactive, but now they are proactive and flexible. Collaboration used to be limited, but now leaders work across department, across country, and even with outside organizations. And finally, leaders strategy have changed as well. In the past, authority and experience were the main traits, but today's empathy and technological literacy are just as important. Next slide, please. So, why did leadership involve so much? First of all, technology changed everything. With phones, the internet, and real time communication, leaders can no longer afford to make slow or alone decisions. Second, globalization made crisis more complex, and many events affect multiple countries at the same time, so leaders have to coordinate with more people. And also, public expectation and transparency increase. People want information quickly, and they want leaders who communicate honestly. And fourth, organization now understand the value of people focused leadership. Next slide, please. And also, we can see these changes clearly by looking at the real examples. During the 1918s financial crisis, leaders made decisions through long reports, meetings, and slow communication channels. Everything took time, and information wasn't immediately available. Compare that to the COVID-19 pandemic. Leaders used real-time dashboard daily real-time dashboard and communicate with people and public faster. Another example is natural disaster. In the past, responses were mostly local, and people depended on local authorities. But today, disaster responses involves global coordination and international support. And even communication has changed dramatically. Instead of printed memos, we now have live updates through social media and digital platform. My friend's gonna talk about the next step.
All right, so I'm going to talk about how crisis leadership has evolved. So, over the years, crisis leadership has undergone some big transformations. Previously, leaders typically made decisions slowly and relied on command style approaches, similar to the military. This method was effective only in a world where information moved slowly and leaders had more time to plan their responses, such as during certain wars or natural disasters when communication was limited in some way. However, major global events like powerful natural disasters, financial meltdowns, and pandemics like COVID-19 dramatically changed what people expect from leaders. So now crises unfold much faster and they spread across um, territories and borders more often, meaning today's leaders must act quickly and they have to collaborate much more efficiently in order to manage situations that impact multiple sectors at once. At the same time, social media and modern technology have created pressure for leaders to communicate instantly and maintain transparency. And on to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about how leaders use AI now. So these days, AI has a major influence on how leaders manage crisis. Modern AI systems can recognize early warning signs by analyzing big amounts of data, allowing them to detect certain patterns that humans might miss, such as predicting certain illnesses that might pop up or identifying cyber attacks before they spread. A well-known example is the AI platform Blue Dot, which detected unusual pneumonia cases in China several days before COVID-19 was officially reported to the world. AI also provides real-time information during emergencies, like tracking the movement of wildfires, monitoring flooding in different regions, or identifying structural damage after earthquakes. This helps leaders make faster and more accurate decisions while a crisis is still unfolding. Communication has improved as well, with systems that are powered by AI chatbots, delivering instant updates, answering common questions, and reducing the strain on emergency hotlines. AI also contributes to smarter resource planning by analyzing data to determine where medical supplies, rescue queues, or emergency personnel should be deployed to have the greatest impact. And on to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about now how AI has not helped crisis leadership. So AI does offer many advantages, but it also presents serious challenges for crisis management. One of the biggest issues is the rise of AI-driven disinformation and fake data, which is examples are highly realistic fake videos, images, or messages that can spread online faster than official updates. This makes it harder for leaders to maintain public trust and keep people informed during critical moments. Another problem is that leaders sometimes rely too heavily on AI. If the data that AI is trained on, which is biased, incomplete, or outdated, the system can produce misleading results, as seen with some early pandemic models and predictive policing algorithms. Cybersecurity is another major concern when it comes to AI, due to AI systems becoming hacked, allowing attackers to alter different types of information, disrupt communication tools, and just disrupt major important functions in the middle of an emergency. Because AI is trained mostly on historical data, it can struggle when facing new or unusual situations that don't match its prior experience. This really limits its reliability and can slow down decision making at times when accuracy is most important.
These are references for our presentation.
We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for watching.